Hello? Oh, now you're here.
Hey, it
I don't know
worked.
what happened.
That was really weird.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people now diverted to this channel.
Yes, I see Starman, I see Jessica. So I think people are getting the signal that this live has
Okay.
started.
Okay.
So um, I guess I'll just do a quick intro. So this is Curtis from Spaceport LA, and today we're interviewing Kitty from Art by Physicist Kitty up above.
Hello.
And so Kitty, the last time we saw each other was back in February, the last in-person Spaceport LA event.
Yeah.
And it was 3D printing in space, and you were showing off. You had a table with all kinds of really cool projects and fashion and art pieces that you were working on. So
Yeah.
how have you been since then?
Yeah, I've been good. Actually, that event was the last in-person event that I attended. So that was quite a thing. And a lot happened since then. I moved from California to Germany, and
Okay.
I moved everything and still waiting for my sewing setup to be here and the studio setup. So luckily I have some of my products here, and um, so for people who don't know yet, I work for Microsoft. That's my full-time job is in Microsoft quantum computing, and I'm responsible for educating people about quantum computing. So working on producing a lot of learning materials to teach people. And I personally have a lot of projects around quantum computing and science and art, combination of design and fashion. So yeah, so I'd be good. How about you, Curtis?
Good, thank you. So Spaceport LA has been doing these IG lives for the past, I think, 5 weeks. I sent out this week was like the fifth email talking about the different IG lives that we're hosting. And yeah, things have been definitely interesting. We're learning how to communicate in this new situation, and I imagine we're going to continue doing something like this for a while because people are going to be a little cautious about attending in-person events, and
For sure.
I've seen that a lot of the space community has also transitioned into doing webinars, IG Lives, Zoom, just to kind
Mhm.
of continue sharing and continue connecting.
Yeah.
And so for us, we're using this opportunity to get to like reconnect with speakers like you and thinking about, okay, what else could we do next? Because we want to continue pushing this message of like spaces for everybody with an underlying message that LA is where everyone should be to do space, but obviously we can still connect virtually. And maybe this is like space, where we have people living on Earth, on the moon, on Mars, and in space stations, and we'll be having to do this virtual connection when we're living farther and farther apart. So this
Yeah.
is an analog space mission. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, it's a test. It's a test for a lot of future endeavors, and we're moving towards more of a digital transformation and modern workspace. So it's a real test of our technology too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, every day when I'm working, I'm struggling with the connection issues of like, I can't connect to my corporate VPN, but we'll leave
Like
that
just
there.
now, we couldn't even join. I couldn't even join your live, so I don't know what happened there.
And that was really weird. So tell us what are some of the new projects you're working on right now?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm still kind of waiting for my sewing
Mhm.
equipment to arrive from the States. It's been delayed, but I'm doing a lot of design digitally on the computer right
Okay.
now. And so for my fashion brand, so by the way, this is my personal brand, Art by Physicist Kitty Young, but I have my fashion brand, which is Art by Physicist. So I do a lot of tech embedded fashion and also using technology to make fashion products. So one of the things that I can do without manually sewing stuff is to do 3D printing. So I've just designed a new product using 3D printing and Fusion 360. I made this quantum cat, Schrodinger's cat earring. I can show you here. Yeah, this one here. This is the Schrodinger's cat. This side is dead, so you can see the skeleton. I don't know how clear the video is.
It's a little hard to see, but
yeah, I think it's trying to focus on my face. Yeah, and then here the other side is normal cat. So that's the cat life and death in superposition, and it's a carved earring. You can wear it like that.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, so this is all done digitally. So this is the physical product, but it's only produced once I made sure that the design looked all right and the sizing. And so I only prototype once, and this is the production product. And it can be printed in all kinds of materials. This is the nylon version, but you can print metals. So I have the silver and gold version. You can see I also made a video of it that's showing the superposition of the live and dead cat. And something else I've been doing is designing fabrics that have my paintings on them, and also overlaying patterns, clothing patterns on top of the paintings. So I'm actually wearing one of those right now. So this is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is. I don't know how much people can see.
You might have to point the camera a little lower.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or stand on a chair or something.
Yeah. So this is dress for to represent Saturn. So the skirt here is the ring of Saturn.
Yeah.
And I have LEDs embedded with accelerometer, so it detects the angle of your skirt. When you turn, it shows the Saturn ring. And when it reaches a certain angle, it lights up.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay.
Yeah, so this one has been up on the website for a bit. It is having the pattern directly. So this is my painting of Saturn, and then also the clothing pattern is directly printed on the fabric. So people buy the piece of fabric and do cut and sew themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and it's completely all digitized. There's no like back and forth making patterns, making samples. People can, if they like to sew, they can construct this themselves. And there's no like using paper pattern and transferring that onto fabric, because that's very manual and kind of waste of time. Yeah. So yeah, and then I've been designing more things like this.
That's cool.
Yeah, you see them gradually being posted. I think it's a very bad time for physical manufacturing, but it is a good time for incubation and design. So I've been doing a lot more just designing and using digital tools without depending on the equipment.
Yeah, I think I was reading, was it Isaac Newton who, during his kind of epidemic of his time, he went away and kind of came up with a lot of like his theories and a lot of like people who just kind of go away from society for a while. They come up with really cool ideas, and then when the world is ready again, like there's this flourishing of new ideas, new creativity. So yeah.
And I'm sure he would come up with those theories anyways without that plan. So that's Newton. Yeah, so go ahead. No, I'm just saying that I've been working from home anyways. My team is in the US. I report back to the US every day in the evening. Um, and I'm remote. Now everyone's joining. We're all joining from home. So there's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I wanted to dig a little deeper about how you come to where you are, who you are right now, where you're combining art, science, and the maker aspects. I'm sure they were all interests of yours, and then now like those are coming together, and that's really exciting. But I wanted to hear some of that Genesis story of like where did it start?
I well, it's really hard to say where um, what I'm doing now got started, but I would say that it really derived from what I always loved to do as a kid. So I just never stopped doing what I like to do. So when I was
Okay.
very little, when I had memory, I started drawings and paintings just for fun. I wasn't attending any professional training, but I was just so interested in a lot of things. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a scientist, but also an artist and a musician and a philosopher. At some point, I wanted to be a voice actress, but but a lot of those intellectual interests that I had, and when I was exploring what I wanted to do, that was really in middle school when I started learning physics. I really fell in love with it. Because I realized I was already really interested in stargazing. I wanted to be an astronomer also. So I always like to observe the stars and using my map, star map. And when I started learning physics, I realized as a study of nature, it really helps us understand how our universe works. And at the same time, we use what we learn about nature and apply those onto our everyday inventions. And as engineers, we create all kinds of new things on Earth. So that's that enlightened me. And I decided I just wanted to pursue physics as my full-time profession. But because I love art so much, I thought that if I become a scientist, I could still do art, perhaps. But if I pursue art full-time, is very hard to say. I probably won't be able to do any science. That's what I thought. So that's how it. Yeah, you asked for Genesis, so I gave a really long answer. But I just focus on physics, and that's my core main profession. But doing art on the side, did painting and learn music. It wasn't clear to me that it's actually possible to combine them. When I was a student, I thought one day I may be able to combine art and music and science. I really like the intellectual trilogy, but it was not clear to me until I started working. And I was doing some hobby projects on the side. As my first job was at Intel working on this silicon photonic chip design.
Okay.
As the chip you can use in data centers, that on chip you can guide light wave to communication. So between servers, you have optical fibers that connect the servers in data centers, but between the server and your optical fiber, you need some interconnect that can convert electrical signal and optical signal. And
so like all the dots and dashes turn into zeros and ones type of thing.
Yeah, it's information transfer. And I was just working on that because it was related, using what I learned in my PhD, which was plasmonic circuit. But then I was working with some friends on a robotic project where I started playing with those open source hardware, like Arduino and programming the open source hardware. And then I was sewing for fun when, yeah, it's just when I was graduating from PhD, I finished all my experiments and I thought I wanted to learn something new. I bought my sewing machine and I bought a book and watched some videos on YouTube and I started sewing my own designs. So if you look at my website, you see a lot of early designs that I had that was all handmade, all with my paintings on them. But just at some point I thought there's no reason I cannot combine what I'm working with on the robotic project to fashion. The electronics are getting smaller and smaller, and we can program them to do whatever we want. There's no reason I can't just sew them into fabrics. So yeah, I just started exploring and made clothes that can move around and change colors. Oh, do you want to see some demos?
Yeah, I'd love to.
I can show you more. Like this one had wings. So this, first of all, I have my paintings on them.
Right.
This is kind of a Chinese inspired painting, Chinese style. Yeah. If you look closely, the sleeves moving.
Whoa. Is it actually, you're not like, it's like automatically articulating on its own, right?
Yes. I embedded a little microadreno chip and some servos that can be attached to the sleeve. Just a battery and it's going to move around like this. Of course, you can also connect to sensors. They can respond to your brain signal. I have a dress that changes colors and patterns based on your brain signal using EEG, the intensity of your thoughts, and then use Wi-Fi to connect to the dress to control it. So this is the mechanic design. This is one of, actually, I think that this might be my first design with the electronics embedded. Just having something that moves around like a wing. And I also have this. So then when I was exploring these new ideas, it was a lucky time when Intel started doing this maker projects. So Intel had a lot of open source hardware then. There was the Curie module, Arduino, Galileo, Edison, and this one, I need to plug in the battery there because this big battery ran out of battery. I still don't have supplies of these batteries yet, and they'll run out. Let me plug it in on my computer. So this was made when I was at Intel. This team that was making these maker products with the Intel chips on them. And they have really interesting functionality. This one is the Cure module that has accelerometer, Bluetooth, pattern matching engine, all on the same, and all on the same chip. So then I really wanted to show off the technology that this chip has. So I came up with this dress. It has the accelerometer, so it can detect my hand gesture.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I can train it to memorize my hand gesture. When I hand in the corresponding way, it will show the constellations I pre-trained it to memorize. So right now we have 4 constellations on the dress, and it's also a page from my graphic novel. It's scientist and her robot looking into the telescope.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So yeah, you can also see my graphic novel on my website. I have a lot of pages. The storyline is there, but it's not, is a lifelong project. So I'm continuing to draw more pages. but the general salary is there. So now in the sky area, I just wanted to embed these
okay.
LEDs that's in the constellation shape. So you can see Cygna, Big Dipper, Cassiopeia, and Orion.
That's cool. It's kind of like a magician kind of waving the wand, and it's like now like the clouds clear up and you see the constellations.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
So I wanted to demonstrate the technology using art, so people can understand that how to use the accelerometer, how to use the pattern matching engine, because that's what's really powerful about the chip. So that's how I really got started. I was lucky that I joined this team full time when they were working on this maker products, and I was their UX designer. But it's a quite different kind of UX designer. It's physical for hardware, not the UI UX.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's more like a HMI, human machine interface type of
yes,
UX.
exactly. So that was a very interesting experience for me. And then I just continued building a lot more. When I see a new type of technology, I can always think about a way to embed it in fashion and be able to demonstrate the technology through art.
That's cool. And make it more about like the wearing the experience instead of like making something efficient or like it's instead of it being more mechanical, it's like more enriching, right? Where
Yeah, and this art is a way to communicate with people. It is how we can influence people culturally and also communicate. And when people see the same idea presented in a really plain engineering way, they may not be able to immediately get it. But if you embed it into something that they are experienced with every day, and that's a much more approachable way to communicate. And that's also my approach with quantum computing. I started this comic series. So since Stay at Home started, I challenged myself with this new project to teach people quantum computing in a very non-intimidating way. So I started drawing these pictures, comics about quantum computing. First start from the theory of how what quantum computing is, and then talked about programming. And now I started just this week started some pages about hardware. Okay. So it's been well received. People like it, so I'm really glad that it could be helpful.
Do you plan on like publishing a small cartoon book based on your drawings?
I don't know how that works. Maybe. I don't know how publishing generally works. I've been just posting them online, and it's free. And it would be nice to print them out like books. But I really, if anyone in the audience know how to publish books, I would love to know. There is a spider on the wall. Where? I have spiders in this place. It's very big. It's on so it's got a really high ceiling, and we have a lot of insects, all kinds of insects. So I'm kind of purposely keeping some spiders just to guard the place.
Yeah, make them eat all the unwanted insects for sure.
It's okay, but we do have spiders on the wall.
Now it's getting warmer, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, so there's the maker and like the building aspect of you, and you've talked about up to the Intel makerspace. How did that transition into now having your own store and selling that work? Because that's a whole nother level. And like, I sew things for fun, like, or I used to. I haven't touched sewing machines except like sewing masks now. But
I have a mask project coming up. I need to sew some masks, but I'm still waiting for my machine. But I may hand sew some. Go ahead.
But Yeah, how did you think about, okay, I want to give this, like sell it to people or make it available to more people than just for yourself? Or how did that transition happen?
Yeah, it was not a sudden phase transition. It did take a while. So I at first was just building all these things for fun. It's intellectual exploration and just to see what's possible. And it's really interesting when I was at Intel, we wanted to scale some of those designs. So a colleague asked me to design a T-shirt that is for the volunteers at Maker Faire back when Intel was still participating in Maker Faire. And I had this idea of showing off our products with with a T-shirt, and it's a wearable robot that can detect people approaching you, and then also show hello messages on the screen. But on the shirt, it will have some conductive threads, weaved circuits. So there are soft circuits on the T-shirt. I made all of that by hand. I hand sewn, I stitched all of the connected threads and connected to other electronics and LEDs. Then we wanted to scale this, and my colleague and I started looking for manufacturers. Turned out no one was able to manufacture them. That was like a wall hit on my face. Is realizing things I can do by hand doesn't mean that the manufacturing industry is capable of doing. And we were looking for all kinds of solutions. There's no one who back then were like embroidering conductive thread. And either we have to convince some more forward-thinking manufacturers to try that, or we were looking for those maker spaces that can do things small scale. And there's another way to do it is conductive ink. You could draw those ink, make them into soft circuits, but then they were not able to guarantee number of washes. So you don't want people to like wash a couple times and your circuit disappears. So it turned out that was a whole new emerging industry that people are exploring. Those cool ideas that stand out because of the open source community that really allow people to build all kinds of prototypes. But there was no manufacturer who's able to turn those prototypes into products. And eventually we found some makerspace that were willing to do this, but it would cost more than $100 to make a shirt. A t-shirt that's not acceptable. It's just a t-shirt. We want to give to more than 100 people in the company, but it's not acceptable. So then that project did not happen, which was really sad to me. But then it really triggered my curiosity. I was thinking why we can already make things by hand, and what does it take to really build those things into products? And also at the same time, a lot of people reach out to me. They ask me where to buy my designs. Those were just my handmade prototypes. I demonstrate them, and people can see them on the website. And there's just no manufacturer. Fashion designers don't know how to make electronics. And electronic design manufacturers, they don't know how to make fashion products. So the need to combine the two at the interface. There are not a lot of people who can speak both languages. So that's how it really triggered me to go down the rabbit hole and just never, when I start something, I never stop. So I just started looking for manufacturers, and some people in China were willing to help me. I had some partner who were trying to find manufacturers to scale up my designs. And but turned out it was really hard, really difficult. Why? Because in China, most manufacturers are doing mass production. So they're not willing to experiment and make some small production to support independent designers. At the same time, there's not a lot of very good skills in the United States who's able to make those nice quality products. So it's very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So in China, they have really good quality.
Mm-hmm.
My partner managed to help me build some of those prototypes into production scale, like pattern design or drawn on the digitized format, and made a few samples. But then they always require you to do mass production, like thousands and hundreds and thousands of units. Like a new brand, how can you do that? So you want to test the market, and you want to, especially the things that you do are so edgy, is actually really hard. So even without electronics embedded in those things. So by the way, all those samples that they made were just pure clothing, no electronics, and I had to hand embed those electronics in them.
Wow, okay.
So,
that's a lot of work on your part.
Yeah, and so eventually we couldn't really do it in China because they just asked you to make huge orders. So I brought those back to the States and finally found some manufacturers that were good enough, and they were supportive of independent designers and were able to then make those products. So I have some of them here. So.
Okay.
So this here is a painting of Guilin. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth, and it happens to be where my grandparents lived. So this is the dress of my painting on silk, and it's multi-way and wear this bow or not. So for people who are interested, all of these you can find on our website, is kittyyoung.com, or you can search art by Physicist. And also the other design I can show here is the constellation dress. So Curtis, you've seen that before.
Yep.
So
that's a very pretty pattern.
So this is the constellation dress that has the paintings of the constellations I did by hand. It has all these hand-drawn constellations. You can light up with the LEDs at the bottom.
Wow, so you had the dress made and then you had to hand sew the LED portion yourself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
So these, yeah, because I want to make very original and unique designs.
Yeah, that's very special.
And that's very, a lot of work for manufacturers. They rather build something that they're used to. Now you're giving them something that they have not done before, and you have to teach them how to manufacture these, and you ask them to leave the design details that you need to embed electronics in them. Yeah, so that's
boutique, yeah.
Quite a journey for me. So it took me about 2 years to build the brand. The first year was really trying to find, going back and forth and changing manufacturing. And then the second year was bring everything back to the States and making everything in the States local, and then I can also then iterate on the products. So yeah, it also helped me understand all these problems that's in the current fashion industry. So that's the other major project that I've been working on, is to use technology to change the way we manufacture clothes. So all these back and forth was also because everything we were trying to do was so manual. The fashion manufacturers, they still, a lot of them, even if you give them the digitized pattern, they still have to print out the pattern and cut it with the paper pattern and do the manual fitting. And even if you have this documentation standardized, you give it to a different manufacturer, the fit will come out completely differently.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The fit will always be wrong when you change a manufacturer for some reason.
Okay.
So you have to redevelop everything with to get the size right, get the patterns, get the fits, the fabrics right. And then eventually it could take more than half a year to develop any new style.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because coming from an engineering mindset, we can already automatically manufacture nanometer size, micrometer size chips at high precision. But then clothing, this large thing that's not really high tech, we can't even make it standard.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, and I would say that like so in the rocket industry, so my day job, the company does a lot of mission assurance for launch vehicles. So Delta rockets, Atlas rockets, SpaceX, and even by changing the subcontractor who like manufactures a specific component, if the process, or even if it's the same manufacturer and the process changes, like there could be severe consequences. In the case of launching rockets, I mean, the whole thing might blow up. And so there is something to be said about trying to standardize that process so that it's much more modular in the sense that, okay, like I could take the same design and go to different manufacturers and get it right. Like even in 3D printing, I think now they're finally getting to the point where they're getting standards in terms of like how do you do the fill, what is the temperature that you control these things at, and so but with fashion I can see like there may not be that requirement to be as process controlled, because especially with mass production, you make it and people buy it if they like it. If they don't, they'll just like not buy it. So
but then not buying results in waste.
Yeah,
the biggest problem for fashion is that the manufacturer, the fashion brands, they don't know how much will be sold. And the manufacturers, they constantly ask for huge mass production. That's forcing the fashion brands to go large scale, even though they don't know how much they can sell some styles. So every season they are pushed to make new designs that they don't know how much will be sold, and turn out that the number is 30% of clothing globally ever made are never sold.
Oh wow!
30%.
Yeah, that's a lot of waste. That's crazy.
And then, for each brand, that's like tens of billions of dollars. And what do they do if they cannot sell those clothes? They send them to landfill or burn them.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So the fashion industry, the whole overproduction and the way they make clothes contributes to 10% of carbon footprint.
Wow. Okay. That's
so
yeah.
That really got me into this, is that this huge problem about fashion. At the same time, we like fashion because it's art and it's beautiful, it's creativity, but then knowing how things are produced, the way it is not acceptable. We can't just produce things that people don't want. Instead, we could be still very creative. We can show people how things are made and show people prototypes. If they like it, if they want it, then we produce it. That requires technology to meet the fast turnaround, rapid prototyping, standardization, so that when people make the order, it can be really quickly made for the person, to their size, to their preferences. We don't have any technology like that right now. And it's the 21st century. We're producing all these waste.
That's true. I'm going to take this time to just, if anyone has any questions, I know people have been coming on and off, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type it into the comments.
How long? Yeah, we have.
So the IG Lives last an hour. Like last time I was talking with who was I talking with? Maybe it was either Andrew or Robert, and it ended at 60 minutes, which I didn't know. It was Robert. And so I think because we started a little later, we still have like 15 minutes, but I know it's pretty late over there. So I don't want to
Yeah, that's
keep it
okay.
too late.
So I just wonder if, because people joined through my Instagram, are they able to see that you are in the live with me and they are joining from there too?
I think so. I think both Spaceport LA and Art by Physicist Kitty Yeung show up as being live.
Oh, I see.
And so after this, when you end it, it's going to give you an option to save and share on your stories. And so
okay.
Please do that so that I can go back and download the video later.
Okay.
And then I'll also make a post saying that, hey, our interview with you is on your account today, so that people can go watch it if they want to.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. There was another thing that when we were prepping for this, you wanted to talk about your passion for STEM, and I don't think we had a chance to talk about that yet.
Sure. What do you want to learn about it? I did throw some hints about that.
Is there anything specific that you're doing to reach out to the younger audiences? I know you have your cartoons, so you have the different projects that you're working on. Are there things that you're thinking in the future that you want to do?
Yeah, so I think there are two, in terms of future projects that I'm pursuing, they're just two very big areas that I'm doing and I want to continue doing until I solve those problems. So the first one is about the general scientific literacy of the general public. So that includes young people, but also adults. I actually personally think that it's harder to teach adults than teaching kids. I think adults are doing a good job giving the content to their kids to inspire them to support their growth. But at the same time, they don't have time to re-educate themselves. So just in terms of my professional area, quantum computing is to a lot of people, very mysterious. So I think first that we haven't done a very good job as scientists to communicate and give people what they need. And second is that a lot of people are just busy and they're not really trying to learn that. So to solve this problem, I think we need to produce more materials that's meeting people where they are. People coming from all kinds of backgrounds, they may be students, they may be researchers, or they may be some business people who try to understand this and perhaps use it in their business. So we need to prepare the right education to have the general public and anyone who want to use quantum computing a basic scientific understanding of it. So that's one gap I want to fill. And the second gap that I want to fill is the waste and pollution problem that I mentioned about fashion. So for educating kids, I get constantly invited to show kids the demonstrations and teaching them how to do it. I've done a lot of workshops with students, but I really also want to encourage their parents, the adults, to join this, to join the learning with their kids, to be able to support their kids and be a role model for their kids. So I don't intentionally make things childish. I think it's just the child part of me that's always showing my intellectual curiosity. I build that into my work. So STEAM is very important because I think a lot of problems that we have right now is because of the silos that we create in society. So just using the fashion as an example, that not enough people in fashion know about engineering, so they're not keeping up to date with technology. Whereas engineers historically, they're not very interested in fashion. So they're not really making things that could help to support the fashion industry. So then we're creating these silos in industry that's really generating the problems, and we have to fix it. So humans are very good at creating problems and try to fix it rather than preventing the problems. So that's what drives me to build all these examples. But oftentimes I get pinged by parents because they see a lot of beautiful things I try to present, and they immediately think about their kids. But my intention is, which is really good. I really appreciate that they're thinking about their kids. I think someone's asking a question. We can get back to it. But I think,
yeah, we'll get to Robbie's question later. Yep.
Yeah, but I think more has to be done once people stop being kids. They kind of change. They lose what their passions are, and I really want to bring that back to them.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that's one of my motivations for starting Spaceport LA, where there's not the content that I want to see out there to say like, okay, I was doing space. I wanted to do space as a kid. I'm doing space now as a professional, but there's technical conferences, and then there's astronomy. But for me, like, I want to see more, like, not just the technical side, but bring in the art. I want people to be talking about space. I want people to be wearing space, because we're going to need a large population to support more of us exploring and understanding and doing things in space. And that's why I really love the work that you're doing, where you're bridging these communities, the technology to the fashion and makers, to start that conversation, right? Because that's where it begins, where you get curious and then you start making that bridge, and then you find and discover something new. And so yeah, I totally get that, where it's not just about the kids. Like, the adults have to be interested enough to say, oh, this is interesting, I want to share this with my kids. And that excitement and interest is contagious, where if I mean, of course, there's like at a certain age, kids start going the other direction, but at least early on, like when I've been talking with all these other people who are involved or in and around the space industry, there's something in their childhood that's about, like, I looked up the stars, like I was interested in astronomy, I had a telescope, and it always kind of goes back to, there's like some kind of inspiration or a moment in their childhood that they go back and say, yes, like space was something I was always interested in, and that's why I'm now able to bring it back now. And I think what you're doing, where it may take a decade or so for someone who is exposed to quantum computing or some of the other things you're doing to then say like, oh yeah, like I really liked what Kitty was doing, and I want to try that for myself now. So I really like what you're doing, and I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll keep working with a lot of people and collaborate, make good things together.
All right, so Robbie was asking, what are some brands that are innovating in the fashion industry, that, in your opinion?
Well, I don't want to advertise by any brand, but a lot of brands are realizing the problem. Right now is the time that is been talking about sustainability for a while now. And at the same time, I think consumers are about to start to realize those problems in the fashion industry. So both from pressure from outside and within, like fast fashion brands, a lot of people are now realizing how polluting they are and wasteful they are. So they are also trying to change themselves. And they're also always those forward-thinking brands are more tech savvy. like some sports brands, they're always trying to use the latest technologies to build their products. But I don't think we have done well enough, really. A lot of brands, they say that they are sustainable, but that's still around this discussion stage. So because the scale that they're involved is so large, it is offshore manufacturing and it's got so many suppliers to bring everyone on board to change everything that they're doing. It's a big task. And eventually, I just hope that if they're just looking to make money, then it's not ever going to change. It has to be everyone realizing we're damaging our environment, our planet, and they, as big brands, have to play a role in stopping the way they do things. Their business model has to change. And it might mean that they need to do some early investment in, so early on they have to spend some money to make a complete change in their supply chain.
Right.
And then later on they will see they are still having good profit margin because they cut down the waste instead of trying to sell more and more and more or making more and more and more to increase that profit margin.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
along those lines, like last year's Spaceport LA's fashion theme was about sustainability, and we were discussing between organics and inorganics, what's happening on Earth versus what we can do in space. And we had JR talk about Made of Mars and looking at inorganic materials that are very abundant in space. But I think the overall kind of discussion was, like, when you go to space, you can't bring all of the stuff that's happening on Earth with you. And there's the waste issue where you're eventually going to need to wash your clothes and then throw away your clothes and make new clothes. And right now in the International Space Station, like, they bring up the astronaut spacesuit or flight suits, and then they just burn it in the atmosphere because that's the easiest thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And they don't even wash it; they just like throw it away, which is mind-blowing because it takes so much energy and money to bring it to space in the first place, and then they just burn it away, which is just
maybe 100 years later, when we are colonizing a lot of space around Earth, we realize we have so much trash we need to get rid of. That's all that remains from the burned goods.
Yeah. Like, well, at least with like what JR was doing, so he's taking basalt and turning it into fabric. Using the fabric of that. Oh, you do have it.
Yeah, I actually have the fabric content that I designed this dress into.
Oh, cool. Oh, I saw the pictures of those. I haven't actually seen it in person.
Yeah, and this one with the environmental protection theme, I embedded this optical dust sensor.
Okay. Oh, cool.
That can detect the air quality. And inside, I also have this Adafruit Circuit Express. It has temperature sensor and some LEDs and buzzers. So when it detects the bad air quality, it will make a buzz sound, a warning. And then if the temperature is abnormal, it will also show up on the colors of the LEDs.
Oh, cool.
So this is
need that right now.
Yeah, you can't really. I've worn this, but I mean it's not for everyday wear. But this is really to show it's a conceptual piece that warns people about global warming and environmental pollution. So.
One of the things JR was telling us was that this fabric, if you work it too much, it'll start fraying and breaking.
Yeah.
Have you found it difficult using that?
It's a little hard to sew, to manage. That's why also I didn't have it all over the body. I stop it from touching the skin. So it's more of a decorative piece around. By the way, this tutorial people can find online through my website. They can also find how this was made. And I made this dress and also some handbags. When you put aluminum foil behind, it can give the rigidity and it makes very nice looking bags. The fabric, yeah, you don't want to directly touch it to your skin because it's essentially really fine fibers. These are like the fine glass fibers.
It's almost like fiberglass, right?
Yeah, so it's really nice as an art piece, but it's not really for everyday touching your skin kind of wear. But the bags were pretty good. The bags made sense. I think I don't have it now here, but you can find it on my website. It's still being shipped here. Yeah. So this is the Made of Mars. And yeah, going back to Robbie's question, I think a lot of innovative brands are startups, smaller brands, that they're really trying to think about a different way and making things differently. And I'm advertising for my own brand too. So like, I don't want to do mass production, and I want to only do made to order and have those designs already made as less manual labor as possible, and having those the fabric is printed with environmental friendly printing and also with patterns directly printed on them. Also to show people how the processes are made, so they are open source, so people can learn how to make things themselves. So those are all those measures that we can take to prevent mass production and prevent overproducing and making things that people don't really need. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope with this stay-at-home, people are picking up sewing again. And not
that's true. Although most people are sewing masks right now. Yeah, I need to. When as soon as I get my sewing machine, I was designing a mask, a different type of mask, because that's another area. Yeah, okay, that reminds me something very interesting. Oh, by the way, some brands are also using recyclable materials, which is another very good way to do that. So a professor that I know in Tübingen, Professor Michael Black, he just posted some human face models. They did a lot of training of their algorithm to figure out different types of facial expressions and different face shapes. Because think about it, it's like the body. We still need to build avatars and all kinds of human bodies to make better fits. Same with face. We have those masks, but they don't fit everyone's face. You always and you get etched on your skin, or they have gaps. So it's not very good for preventing viruses. So if we could use this kind of facial model, so everyone has their own face and had masks form-fitted for their own face, that would be the real future. That would be and we can do it now. He's posted the models online. It's open source, and I still need to look into how to use it. But that's what we got to do with fashion, with things that we wear. So perhaps face mask thing can help us get there faster. Because clothing, people have been making clothing hundreds of years the same way, and we can do something that no one has done before and immediately get into this made-to-order mode. So in that way,
yeah, like first, it hasn't been masks per se, but like glasses. Like there are different face shapes, and the glassware that I find, at least.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I never know how this works. So was that's a timer from Instagram or was it a timer by you?
No, I think it limits each live to 60 minutes.
I see. Hello, everyone. Some
Welcome
people join back.
So, yeah, I think what I was just saying a little before was that, yeah, if we can go to more custom-made, order-made, and still keep the cost low, I think that would be a great thing. So,
For sure.
and,
Yeah. I think
just wanted to give the opportunity to like say last words. So
yes. Oh well, I don't know. What do you want to know at last? I think
I just wanted to say, well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Or otherwise we'll just say bye. Nanotech girl is very cool. She dances. She's a scientist, but she also is a dancer.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Glad you're here.
Garage Monkey. I just wanted to make sure, if there aren't any questions, just to say thank you very much. And I'm glad that you're settling down in your new house. Oh, I guess we do have a question. How did you manage to, I think she's still typing.
Yeah. Balance my interests.
Balance your interests.
Yeah. I just always find time to do a little bit of things. I think I definitely don't have enough time to do everything. Like even today, I have run out of time. I'm supposed to draw some new comic pages for quantum computing, but I got distracted to learning new things, and I just started reading online, and I still haven't got the pages done. But it's in my head. I'm gonna draw them after this interview. So definitely, I have way too much going on, but I just always work very efficiently. So I have a couple of hours per day to do some creative work. And I don't know if other people do it the same way, but I always have a long-term goal. Like there's a project in my head, I'm going to finish it, but I may not be able to devote like full hours, full days on it. So I would do a little bit today, do a little bit tomorrow. So maybe today I play a bit piano, tomorrow I'm drawing, and the day after I'm singing or something. But then over time they accumulate, and eventually I finish my projects. So unless there are deadlines I have to meet, I prioritize. Yeah. So I try to work efficiently and finish work so I can save the weekend for myself or a couple of days, a couple of hours per day. Yeah.
You do have a lot of projects, and I'm looking forward to the ones that you're working on and continue working on. I think we're going to wrap up here, but thank you very much for your time all the way from Germany. You're 9 hours ahead, so it's already pretty late over there.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this interview. And you guys do really amazing work. And I hope
thank you very much.
More interesting things come out. This is a very challenging time, and I hope that more people interested in space and listen to your presentations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Kitty, and thank you everyone else for listening in. This is Spaceport LA, and have a great weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll post this online, right?
Yes. So if you save,
yes,
and then
I make this editing to put you and me horizontally and upload it on YouTube.
Awesome. That would be great.
Okay. Well, that was another project. I will need to find time to do. Okay.
All right. Good night, Kitty.
Okay, great. Have a good day.